This one is a different kind of teaching, and I want to tell you exactly why before we get started. I sat down at my kitchen table on a Tuesday evening back in February with a mug of coffee going cold beside me, and I opened an envelope from the electric company. $215. That's what the bill said. Now, February isn't even my worst month. That's usually August when the air conditioner is working overtime. But $215 was $40 more than the exact same month the year before, and nothing in my house had changed. Same appliances, same number of people, same habits, far as I could tell. I sat there staring at that number, and I thought, something in this house is eating money, and I don't even know its name. Though here's my promise to you, plain and simple. I'm going to walk you through the exact same walk I took through my own house that week, room by room, plug by plug, and I'm going to show you where the money was hiding. Every fix I'm about to teach you costs less than $50 total. Most of it costs a whole lot less than that. And every single one of them you can do yourself in a weekend without calling an electrician or a repairman. Nothing here damages your appliances, nothing here is dangerous, and nothing here requires you to sit in the dark and sweat through summer to save a nickel. When I finished my walk through the house and made my changes, my next bill came in $26 lower, and the one after that dropped even more once the weather-related fixes had time to work. I'm not going to stand here and tell you your bill will drop 95%, because that's not honest, and I don't do business that way. What I can tell you, truthfully, is that most households are bleeding somewhere between 20 and 30% of their electric bill on things that have nothing to do with how careful they are about turning off lights. My name is Linda. I've been keeping house for over 40 years now. My husband, Earl, and I ran a 60-room motel just off the highway down in Florida for most of our married life. And while he handled the plumbing and the roofs and the parking lot lights, I was the one keeping the linens turning over, running breakfast for whoever wandered in at 6 in the morning, and cleaning rooms when we were short-staffed during snowbird season. When you're responsible for the utilities on 60 rooms instead of one house, you learn real quick that a penny of waste in one room becomes 60 pennies of waste by the end of the month, and 60 pennies becomes real money by the end of the year. I raised our own kids on a motel paycheck, and I never once called a technician to figure out where our home bill was going. I figured it out myself with my own eyes and my own two hands, because that's what you do when there isn't extra money sitting around for someone else to solve your problem. Now here's the part that ought to bother you a little. The stuff I'm about to show you, your utility company knows about it. Appliance manufacturers know about it. They've known about it for decades. Nobody's plotting anything against you. I want to be clear about that. Nobody's sitting in a boardroom scheming to keep you in the dark. It's simpler and sadder than that. They just don't make any money by helping you use less. A company that sells electricity has no reason to knock on your door and say, hey, your water heater's been wasting $60 a year for the last decade. You might want to wrap it. That's not their job, and it never was. So this knowledge just sits there, quiet, waiting for somebody to go looking for it. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you're going to walk through your own house and find money you didn't know you had. Here's what most folks get wrong, and I got it wrong myself for years before Earl, and I really sat down and studied our own motel's utility costs. Most people think their electric bill is basically a report card on how good they've been. Did you turn off the lights when you left the room? Did you run the dishwasher at night? Did you yell at the kids for leaving the door open with the air conditioning on? All of that matters some. I won't pretend it doesn't, but it's a small piece of the puzzle. The real money isn't leaking out through the switches you can see. It's leaking out through the ones you can't. The appliances sitting quiet in the corner, still sipping power while they're switched off. The gaps around your doors and windows letting your heated or cooled air just walk right outside. The dirty filter making your system work twice as hard for the same result. The water heater sitting there losing warmth into your basement air 24 hours a day, whether anyone's home or not. You can turn off every light in your house and still be bleeding money because the leaks aren't where you've been trained to look. Let me walk you through exactly what I did, in the order I did it, because the order matters. It took me most of one Saturday, and Earl helped some, mostly by holding the flashlight and telling me I was making more of a project out of it than it needed to be, which, fair enough, that's usually true of me. I started in the kitchen because that's where I noticed it first. I bought a little plug-in power meter at the hardware store for about $22. You plug it into the wall, then you plug your appliance into it, and it tells you exactly how many watts that thing is drawing, whether it's on or off. I want you to understand something that surprised me the first time I learned it. A device doesn't have to be turned on to be using electricity. Anything with a little clock, a remote control sensor, a standby light, or a charger left in the wall is pulling what folks call phantom power or vampire power, a small steady trickle that runs whether you're using the thing or not. My old microwave with its digital clock was pulling almost 4 watts around the clock every single day of the year just to keep that clock lit. My coffee maker with the programmable timer was doing something similar. My son's old video game console, the one that sits under the television that nobody plays anymore, was pulling more power sitting dark and silent than my refrigerator light bulb pulls when it's on. None of that shows up as a big dramatic number on any one day, but stretched across 365 days, it adds up to real dollars, and I want to give you the government's own number here, not my guess. The Department of Energy has estimated that this kind of standby power draw can account for somewhere around 5 to 10% of a typical home's electric use. On a $200 bill, that's $10 to $20 a month just quietly disappearing into things that aren't even doing anything for you. So here's what I did about it, and it cost me about $40 for 4 power strips, the kind with an on and off switch built right into the side, nothing fancy. I put one behind the television and gaming console, one under the kitchen counter for the coffee maker and toaster oven, one in the laundry room for things we don't use daily, and one in my sewing room. At night, or whenever those things aren't in use, I flip the switch on the strip and it cuts the power clean off to everything plugged into it. No trickle, no phantom draw. It took me one evening to set up, and I haven't thought about it since. It's just part of my routine now, same as locking the back door. Next, I moved to the doors and windows, and this is the part that made the biggest difference on my bill, bigger than I expected. I want you to picture something with me. Imagine you're heating a pot of soup on the stove, and there's a crack in the lid letting steam pour out the whole time. You could crank that burner up as high as it'll go, and that soup still won't heat properly because you're fighting a losing battle against the leak. That's exactly what a drafty door or window does to your heating and cooling system. Your furnace or your air conditioner is working itself ragged trying to keep your house at a comfortable temperature while cold or hot outside air is just sneaking in around the edges of every door and window frame. And your conditioned air is sneaking right back out to replace it. The Department of Energy has put a number on this too, and it's not small. Air leaks like this can account for somewhere around 25 to 30% of the energy a typical home uses on heating and cooling. That's not 5%, that's not 10%, that's a quarter to a third of the biggest expense on most people's bills, just leaking out around door frames. I bought a roll of foam weather stripping tape for about $6 a door and a couple tubes of caulk for around $5 each, and I spent a Saturday afternoon going around the whole house. I ran my hand slowly around the edge of every door and window frame, and anywhere I could feel a draft, even a faint one, I marked it with a little piece of masking tape so I'd remember. Then I peeled the backing off the foam strip and pressed it right into the door frame where the door meets the frame, all the way around. For the windows, I used the caulk on any gap I could see between the frame and the wall itself, the kind of small crack that opens up over years as a house settles. I remember standing in my sewing room, which sits on the corner of the house and always ran colder than anywhere else, and finding a gap around that window big enough to see daylight through. I'd blamed that cold room on the old furnace for 15 years. It wasn't the furnace at all. It was one window that never got properly sealed when the house was built. While I had the caulk gun out, I did the same thing to any gaps I found where pipes or wires came through an exterior wall, under the kitchen sink, behind the washing machine. Spots people never think to check because you never see them unless you're down on your knees with a flashlight, which, again, is exactly where Earl found me that Saturday, laughing at me a little, before he got down there himself to help finish the laundry room. And I turned to the thermostat, which is the cheapest fix of the entire list because it costs nothing at all just to have it change. For years, I kept our thermostat at the same setting whether we were home, asleep, or gone to the grocery store for 2 hours. That's wasted money sitting right there in plain sight. The Department of Energy says you can save as much as 10% a year on heating and cooling simply by setting your thermostat back 7 to 10 degrees for 8 hours a day, like while you're sleeping or while you're out of the house. I bought a basic programmable thermostat for about $25, nothing digital and fancy with an app, just a simple dial-in schedule model, and I set it to ease back automatically overnight and while Earl and I are usually out running errands. You don't feel a difference when you walk back in the door. The house catches back up to comfortable in a few minutes, but your system isn't fighting to hold that same temperature for the 8 hours nobody's even feeling it. After that, I checked the air filter on our heating and cooling system, and I want to tell you, I was embarrassed by what I found. That filter looked like a gray felt blanket. I could barely see light through it. A dirty filter forces your whole system to work harder to push air through it, and depending on how clogged it is, that can increase your energy use anywhere from 5 to 15% just for that one part being neglected. A basic filter costs somewhere between $8 and $15, depending on the size your system takes, and the fix is changing it plain and simple. Every 1 to 3 months, depending on the season, and whether you've got pets shutting into your air, ducks the way we do with our old dog. I set a reminder on my kitchen calendar, the paper kind, not the phone kind, because that's how I keep track of things, and now I check that filter the first of every month when I pay the bills anyway. The last stop on my walk was the water heater, sitting quiet down in the utility closet, doing its job around the clock, all day and all night, whether anybody's taking a shower or not. Most water heaters, especially older ones, are only lightly insulated inside their own tank, which means the hot water sitting in there is constantly losing a little warmth into the surrounding air, and the heater has to keep firing back up to make up for that loss. I bought an insulating blanket for the tank, about $22 at the hardware store, wrapped it around the outside of the tank following the simple directions right on the package. Careful to keep it clear of the burner access panel, and the temperature controls the way the instructions told me to. The Department of Energy estimates a water heater blanket like that can cut your water heating costs by somewhere around 7 to 16%, depending on how old and how poorly insulated your particular tank already is. Mine was original to the house, over 20 years old, so I was likely on the higher end of that range. While I was down there, I also pulled the refrigerator away from the wall, which I hadn't done since we moved the thing in, and I vacuumed out the coils on the back. Dust builds up on those coils over the years, and dust acts like a blanket, right where your fridge needs to release heat, which makes the compressor run longer and harder than it should to keep your food cold. That one took me 15 minutes with the vacuum attachment and cost nothing at all. If an old housewife's tricks like these are worth your time, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and give this a thumbs up. It tells me you want more of what I'm sharing, and I've got years of this kind of thing saved up. Now, let me explain the plain science behind why all this actually works, because I don't like teaching a trick without telling you the reason it's true. Electricity that flows into a device with a clock, a sensor, or a remote receiver even when that device shows no light and appears fully off, keeps a small circuit alive so it can respond instantly the moment you press a button. That constant small draw is what's being measured when people talk about phantom or standby load, and it's a well-documented piece of how modern electronics are built, confirmed by Department of Energy testing for years now. Heat, on the other hand, always moves from warmer air toward cooler air. That's just basic physics, not opinion, and it will take the shortest path available to it. A gap around a door frame is a shortcut, plain and simple. So sealing that gap forces the heat to take the long way, through your insulated walls instead, which slows the loss down considerably. A dirty air filter works against your system, the same way a clogged straw works against you trying to drink a milkshake. The motor has to pull harder to move the same amount of air through a smaller opening, and that extra effort shows up as extra electricity on your bill. And a water heater blanket does exactly what a coat does for you standing outside in January. It doesn't stop heat loss completely. Nothing can do that. But it slows it down enough that the heater doesn't have to keep firing up as often to make up the difference. Now, let's talk plainly about the money, because that's really what brought you here. A basic home energy audit done by a professional typically runs somewhere between $200 and $400, sometimes more depending on where you live and the size of your house. And at the end of it, they'll hand you a report telling you many of the exact same things I just walked you through for free. My entire weekend of fixes, the power strips, the weather stripping, the caulk, the basic thermostat, the filter, and the water heater blanket, came to right around $130 total, spent once. On a $215 bill dropping by even 20%, conservatively, that's over $40 a month back in my pocket, which means the whole project paid for itself in about 3 months, and every month after that is pure savings, straight into my grocery budget. Compare that to a fancy smart thermostat system some companies want to sell you for $200 and up, promising to learn your habits and save you money automatically. It might do some good, I won't say it doesn't, but a lot of what it's doing, a simple $25 programmable model with a little bit of your own attention, will do just as well, for a fraction of the price. And you don't have to give any company access to your household schedule to make it work. I put this whole walkthrough, along with dozens more tricks like it, from my years running a household and helping keep a 60-room motel afloat, into a little book called Linda's Homekeeping Handbook. There's a link down in the description if you'd like to have the whole system in one place to work through at your own pace. So this weekend, here's exactly what I want you to do. Buy yourself a plug-in power meter, about $20, and spend 20 minutes testing the devices in your house that sit quiet but stay plugged in. Pick up 2 or 3 power strips, about $10 each, and put them behind your television, your kitchen counter appliances, and anywhere else you've got a cluster of things that don't need power overnight. Grab a roll of foam weather stripping and a tube or 2 of caulk, about $15 total, and spend an afternoon running your hand around every door and window in the house, sealing what you feel. If your thermostat is still the old manual kind, consider a basic programmable model for around $25 and set it to ease back while you're asleep or away. Check your air filter today, right now if you can, and if it's gray instead of white, replace it. A filter runs $8 to $15, and it's the easiest fix on this whole list. And finally, if your water heater is more than a few years old, pick up an insulating blanket for around $20 and wrap it up snug. All told, you're looking at somewhere around $100 to $150 spent once, and a bill that should start dropping the very next month. Tell me in the comments where you're from and what your electric bill has been looking like lately. I read every single one of these, and I always love hearing which fix surprised you the most once you tried it yourself. And if you want the whole system laid out for you in one place, along with the rest of what I've learned keeping a household running on a tight budget for over 40 years, that's Linda's Homekeeping Handbook. Links right there in the description below. Next time, I'm going to show you the trick my mother's generation used to keep a cast iron skillet seasoned so well it outlasted 3 modern nonstick pans, using nothing but a spoonful of something you've probably already got sitting in your pantry right now. You won't want to miss that one. The women who kept this country's homes running knew things were only just starting to remember.